Well, you guys, we did it. We freaking did it. So here we are. It is the day after the Nintendo Direct, and I mean, what do I say? What do I even say after 7 years of this, you guys? We are on the other side of having seen Metroid Prime 4 as a real game. This is what I feel like my YouTube channel has been building to for so long. And again, by so long, I can only say 7 years because it was almost exactly 7 years ago in June of 2017 that the game was famously announced with the logo at the very, very beginning of the Switch's life. Reggie Fils-Aimé was still there. He was the one introducing that little teaser trailer, 41 seconds long, whatever that thing is. And it was so exciting. We were like, the life of the Switch is going to be incredible. It just released, and we already know a new Metroid game is coming, which was big news in and of itself. But the fact that it was Metroid Prime 4 specifically made it an even bigger deal. I mean, it was more important that it was Prime 4 than just any old random Metroid game. You know, Metroid Dread notwithstanding, we can't go into the future, into 2021 at that time, and think about that game becoming a reality. And it's weird that even that game is a part of our past now. So just the whole time vortex around all things Metroid on the Switch is just insane. And I mean, I've basically made my name and a lot of my reputation on YouTube as somebody who is a Metroid superfan and covers everything about Metroid I possibly can. Theories, speculations, stories that are leaks and rumors out there, anything. It's what I do because I'm always thinking about and waiting for something new Metroid. It is my favorite gaming franchise. And I've been doing YouTube now for 10 and a half years. And again, 7 of those years has been in the era where we knew Metroid Prime 4 was real, but we haven't seen it. And, you know, it disappeared after the 2017 reveal at E3, and we got the infamous tragic reboot in 2019. And, of course, I made a video that very morning just with how shattered my soul was. It was insane. And so here we are. In June 2024, the last full year of the Nintendo Switch, we know the successor console is already coming, and finally, after 7 years of speculating and wondering and living in the dark, they've not only just re-revealed this game, but they showed us gameplay. And, you know, I posted my reaction. It just was everything I could have wanted it to be and more. It's very short, which I always knew was a possibility. I was like, we're either going to get like a 30 to 90 second teaser or we're going to get a 2.5 minute blowout. They went more in the teaser territory, but it was all gameplay because that's what Nintendo does. And I have so much to say about it. So I'm trying to not bury the lead, but I also have to kind of empty myself of these feelings. It's been a day. I had a night to sleep on it. I did not have the energy after a full day of work to make a video and break down this trailer and talk about my thoughts, unfortunately. So I'm here doing it the following morning on Wednesday. And yeah, I'm stunned. The game was stunning. It's a stunner, as the kids would say. And I want to talk about what was in it because now we can actually start thinking ahead. I mean, holy crap, we're on the other side of this. I can move my channel into this new era, you guys. 7 years of speculating and wondering and just talking about Metroid Prime 4 as a fan with zero information to go on. Now we're on the other side. My channel now moves into its next phase of life, basically. Because I can talk about Prime 4 as a real game with real gameplay to look at. Okay, so no more gushing, guys. Let's just look at this trailer and actually kind of soak in what's actually happening. I'll just let it play initially, you know, without any stopping to just kind of discuss it. You know, we're going to talk about the Cosmic Year 20X9. That has potentially some massive implications that I'm very excited about and feeds into some things I've potentially been theorizing for a long time. Obviously, we see Samus's beautiful gunship touchdown. She comes out like normal. Immediately, you're like, oh, these are graphics we've never seen before. Samus looks fantastic, way better than even her model, and the gunship looked in Metroid Prime Remastered. And it immediately phases around to gameplay. When I was watching this play out for the first time, and again, you can see it on my reaction, when I realized we were going to circle around and jump into her visor just like, oh, we're going to start playing the game, I got so excited. And I'm going to make some comparisons. I talked about how we're seeing what I think is absolutely an early on, if not the very first area in the game. This is probably the introduction moment. Very likely. I think that this planet she lands on, this area, this battle happening Reminds me of what it's like when she lands on Norion in the beginning of Metroid Prime 3. These pods we've seen before carrying space pirates also in Metroid Prime 3. Gameplay looks fantastic. Samus doing her kick-ass somersault. And then this is the big moment we'll be talking about, of course. Sylux, confirmed, as always made sense to be in this game. Samus looks great. Here's the title. That looks like a black hole maybe. And then we get Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now, we then go to what is honestly my favorite part of the trailer. And as it fades back in, we see a real idea of the scope of this game. That was a very singular kind of claustrophobic little battle scene that they showed us for most of it. But we see this and it's like, yeah, you're going to be on a planet in this huge, vast area, lots of foliage like we're used to, and you're going to get the real deal experience. So, wowzer. Incredible. Very, very short, like I said. All gameplay, love to see it. Looks beautiful, visually stunning. I think without question. A lot of debate in the past 24 hours, I guess, since this whole thing happened, about if it looks too good to run on the Switch or if it looks like it's just the best looking Switch game. To me, when I look at this, it looks like a current Switch game based on the 2017 Switch hardware that we all have in our homes. But it looks like it is pushing the Switch to its absolute max, the best looking game on the console, running buttery smooth in 60 frames per second. It obviously looks better. You know, you watch it happen live and you get whatever sort of buffering and filtering and artifacting that happens with a live stream, even if you have good quality. It's not the same as going back and watching the direct feed upload of the trailer that they played. Or that they released, I should say. And when you watch it that way, you can even see more clearly just how gorgeous this game is. Gameplay looks just like Metroid Prime is supposed to look, which I love. It also looks like, for so many reasons that maybe I remember to touch on in this video. Again, I don't script my videos, man. I'm just going off the top of my dome here. It looks like a next-gen continuation of what Metroid Prime 3 was doing. Both in the general visual art direction, even though it obviously looks better graphically because of the hardware, it looks like Prime 3. There are ideas such as those Space Pirates pods that remind me of Metroid Prime 3. I've said it 100 times now in these two videos. That scene just looking like Norion, and I'm going to show some video comparisons as well. But then you also see that last shot where Samus is walking into that big open area, you know, and you see that tree in the background that I'm also going to talk about. And that also kind of reminds me of Metroid Prime 1 and or 2, not so much what we've seen from Metroid Prime 3. But we're seeing the evolution of the game in terms of its gameplay and graphics, obviously, while also feeling properly in line with Metroid Primes 1, 2, and 3, and most specifically 3. That's the thing I tried to talk about over the past 7 years, man, when theorizing about this game and letting people know, don't expect this to be a totally different kind of first-person Metroid game. They need to balance being an evolution of the franchise and of Samus while also still feeling like a proper sequel in terms of its look and its gameplay and its essence to the first 3 games. They couldn't stray too far from that general tone that was Metroid Primes 1, 2, and 3. And based on the short clips we've seen here, to me, that's what it looks like. And it's everything I could possibly have wanted it to be so far. So we'll talk about the opening where it says Cosmic Year 20X9. Now, I think this could be telling us because, you know, how do I say this? I've been talking about this for a long time. Lots of speculation about when Metroid Prime 4 would take place. Again, in the 7 years when we knew nothing. And so we were all just guessing. And obviously it always made sense for Prime 4 to happen immediately following Prime 3. Primes 1, 2, and 3 in the timeline happened between Metroid 1 and Metroid 2. And so in theory, Metroid Prime 4 was also going to happen within that timeline. You know, between 1 and 4, or 1 and 2, good lord, between Metroids 1 and 2, but way before the most recent game, Metroid Dread, which currently exists at the end of the timeline. But I said many times over the past few years, never a hard prediction, but I have been putting it out there. And if you've been following me for years and watching my Metroid videos, you know this is true. I've been putting it out there that perhaps this game might take place at the very end of the timeline or even after Metroid Dread, because that gives Nintendo an opportunity to continue moving forward in the timeline after the release of Metroid Dread, which was such an exciting thing. We finally moved forward in the timeline with that game. Would it almost feel like a step backwards for Prime 4 to come out and take us back into the past again after finally getting Metroid Dread and stepping into that new point in the timeline? So I always speculated, even with the ending of Metroid Prime 3 and Sylux chasing after Samus and everything that implied, I said, what if Nintendo does something really dope, in my opinion, and says there's just a huge gap in time between the end of Metroid Prime 3 and when Metroid Prime 4 happens? And what if it takes Sylux, who we now know is in this game, years to catch up to Samus and years to reveal himself to Samus as, hey, I've been following you since everything that happened with the Leviathan, which again was Metroid Prime 3, and Planet Phase, and now I am your new threat. And in the times between Metroid Prime 3 and Metroid Prime 4, she's gone through Metroid 2, she's gone through Super Metroid, she's gone through Metroid Other M, she's gone through Metroid Fusion, she's gone through Metroid Dread. Why isn't it possible that all of those games happened between 3 and 4? And so, the 20X9, if you look at the years, the way they explain them in the Metroid kind of lore, it's a little confusing and not confirmed. There's a lot that points to Super Metroid happening in the year 20X5. I believe the first Metroid game, 20X7. So I believe the first Metroid game is 20X5. And then I think that there are insinuations that Super Metroid could be 20X7. And so after Super Metroid, we have Metroid's Other M and Metroid Dread. We don't really know, to my knowledge. Maybe I'm missing something. I know my Metroid lore, but I can't pretend to know everything. To my knowledge, we don't have an indication on what years Metroid's Other M or Dread take place in. But here's the thing. If Metroid 1 is 20X5 and Super Metroid actually is 20X7, look at this. This says 20X9. 20X9 is after Super Metroid. And Super Metroid is after Metroid Prime 3. And so it's a long, convoluted way for me to say, I think. And I could be proven wrong, you guys. It'll be really exciting once Nintendo starts confirming all of this. I think 20X9 is showing us, maybe, like I have said over the years, only as a guess, that maybe Metroid Prime 4 is the farthest in the Metroid timeline we have seen yet, making it after Metroid Dread. So, of course, do not hold me to that, guys, because this is just all my own speculation based on my knowledge and understanding of the lore and the timelines and whatnot. Anything could end up being true. But based on what I know, based on what I think we're seeing here, this is pretty cool. And I'll make different videos talking about the possibilities about what happens if Metroid Prime 4 is in the furthest in the timeline, if it takes place after Metroid Dread. Potentially huge news. Massive. The freaking Metroid suit. I made a video about the Metroid suit a couple months ago and talked about how, what if that's something you could do in Metroid Prime 4? So, hey, I'm just putting that out there. So, this is great as far as the timeline go, but let's jump into some other stuff. So I talked about a little bit in my immediate reaction when I didn't have a chance to rewatch this yet, that maybe the gunship looked more like Samus's visor than we've ever seen, because stylistically her gunships in all the games have kind of looked like an extension of her armor and also her visor and her helmet. Upon review, now that I've had a chance to go back since, posting my real-time reaction, I can see that that's not really true. It's just a clearly much better graphical version of what we saw in Metroid Prime 3. Again, this is Prime 4, the direct sequel to 3, so it makes sense that visually they're staying in line. The gunship in Primes 1 and 2 were very different than what we saw in Prime 3, and in Prime 4, we're just seeing the extension. So clearly the same gunship, still very much mirroring her visor, and it just looks better. It just looks beautiful because the Switch is like 4 times as powerful as the Nintendo Wii, or however that breaks down, because Prime 3 in 2007 was a Wii game, a standard definition Wii game. I mean, it's incredible what's happened in terms of technology and evolution between 2007 with Metroid Prime 3 and now next year in 2025 when Metroid Prime 4 comes out. So that's the situation with the gunship. Samus just looks incredible. Now, let's talk about what I've said 100 times between my reaction and the first couple of minutes of this video. Once we jump into the gameplay, to me, now we don't know what this planet is, so this is the exciting part. We're going to get new locations, a new planet, maybe multiple planets. This is all stuff I've theorized about over the 7 years, and now we're going to start to understand more. But in looking at this gameplay, we immediately jump into some sort of planetary battle. There are ships in the sky, and there are turrets and guns on the ground here that are all firing at each other, firing up into the sky, dropping bombs from above. Samus is fighting off space pirates, so clearly there's a space pirate invasion of this planet, is what this is telling me. Now, if we go back to some of what happens on planet Norion, again, the very beginning of Metroid Prime 3, after the opening section and after she's given her PED suit, she's sent to Norion. And Norion, you know, it's not as epic in scope because it was the Nintendo Wii, you know, limited by hardware, but there is a planetary battle happening on Norion. Samus lands there, there are turrets there that are firing up into the sky, and them down below, and she gets involved with space pirate battles as they come down and fight her, and she's outside on this planet where there's this, you know, mechanical base built into the rocky crags of the mountains, and it just, to me, evokes that Norion vibe. Everything coming from the beginning Norion scene, and you go back to Norion in Prime 3 as well. Everything happening on Norion. I mean, I'm just going to keep saying it. Norion, Norion, Norion. Like, go back and play Prime 3 if you haven't played it in a while. That's what this reminds me of. Also, I want to point out another similarity that, again, continues to evoke and mirror Metroid Prime 3. And again, I say this because Prime 3 was the first to do these kinds of things. This epic ground battle between, you know, turrets on the ground and ships in space and whatnot. You know, Primes 1 and 2 never had anything of that scale. But another area, another time in Prime 3 where something similar happens is also essentially the area on Brio, if I remember correctly, where you fight Rundus. And there's this whole section, there's this quick, you know, huge arena area, which is where you do fight Rundus. And there's a ship up above that's dropping space pirates and bombs and lasers from above. And so these kinds of things, this kind of scale of a battle was introduced in Metroid Prime 3. And literally this freaking 60 seconds of Metroid Prime 4 where you're seeing similar stuff happen just mirrors Norion and this section on Brio where these things happen. And so I just like to see that they were taking those concepts from 2007, so many years ago, and they're continuing that on a grander scale with better graphics and technology and combat abilities and everything the Switch affords, and hopefully the Switch 2 will afford, to continue that in Metroid Prime 4. So I just like to see that essence carried over. Now we see her scanning, and we just get an essence of what the scan visor looks like, and it just looks like a better version that we've ever seen. You know, they've evolved every single time. Hell, even Metroid Prime Remastered altered small little details about the original GameCube Metroid Prime scan visor. It was mostly the same, but it was also advanced. So between Primes 1, 2, and 3 and Prime Remastered, we've seen the scan visor change its look and feel, and we see that evolving again now with Metroid Prime 4. We then get to, I mentioned earlier, these pods that the space pirates are popping out of. This was introduced also in the beginning of Metroid Prime 3. Very, very cool to see that continuing. So again, the space pirates have a very similar look and feel and even battle approach to what we saw in Metroid Prime 3. So I can only continue to double down on the fact that this feels more like an evolution of Prime 3 than it does Primes 1 and 2. And to me, that is perfect. It's exactly what this game should be. The gap in time, to me, doesn't matter in terms of that. This should feel like an extension of Prime 3, and I'm getting that feeling from all this stuff. Then, all right, let's talk about the big reveal, man. We're seeing Sylux, you guys. This is the confirmation we all wanted. Were they really going to make Sylux the main antagonist, or one of? My theory is still one of the main antagonists to this game, and it seems like that's exactly what's happening. Now, again, at the end of Prime 3, 2007, on the Nintendo Wii, you see Sylux's ship raise. At the very end of the game, Samus takes off. We see Sylux show up, chases after her, and then that's the end of the game. Now, in Metroid Prime Federation Force, at the end of that game, and again, it was a spin-off. Samus was only featured as a cameo at the very end, as like a boss thing. It was very weird. I like that game. People crap on it, but I think it was fine. But at the very end of that game, we see that Sylux sneaks in and steals a baby Metroid. And that explains why we have Metroids behind Sylux. And it also, to me, continues to explain the potential time gap between Primes 3 and 4. Is there a chance that it was assumed that Metroids were wiped out from the galaxy, but maybe Sylux has been sitting on the only existing Metroids outside of Samus? We can't forget, if this takes place after Metroid Fusion, then Samus has Metroid DNA within her, so who knows if that's going to play a story between Sylux chasing after her, Sylux having Metroids apparently at his command, based on what this footage shows us, and again, depending on where this takes place in the timeline, is Samus carrying her Metroid DNA as well? So there's a really incredible story to tell here. Now, the other thing I want to say, when we consider Sylux and his role in this game, we have to be aware of the fact that I don't necessarily think that Sylux is going to be the main antagonist. That's not the Metroid way, really. And it's also not the Metroid Prime way. I've said this for years. Again, you guys can back me up if you've been following me. I've said for years, if Sylux is in this game, I think there's a great chance he is going to fulfill a similar role that Dark Samus filled in Metroid Primes 2 and 3, where Dark Samus was a constant threat to Samus, and in both games, you run across Dark Samus a few times and battle Dark Samus, and you do have a final confrontation with Dark Samus, but the true threat in both games wasn't actually Dark Samus. It was the Emperor Ing in Metroid Prime 2. Even though you do fight Dark Samus after you kill the Emperor Ing, really, I still see the Emperor Ing as the actual kind of like main antagonist in that game. And in Metroid Prime 3, it was the Aurora 313 unit. Now, that was being possessed by Dark Samus, which of course is the Metroid Prime essence. And God, the more I talk about it, the more convoluted you kind of realize it all is. So, you know, Dark Samus is Metroid Prime. Dark Samus is like kind of the final battle, but it's also not the final battle in Primes 2 and 3. It's the Emperor Ing, and it's the Aurora 313 unit. And so I feel like there's some greater Metroid Prime specific threat, because Prime, you guys, Metroid Prime has to have some sort of presence in this game. So I think Sylux will be somebody you fight a few times throughout this game, and you will have a final battle with him and defeat him, but there will be some other larger threat, probably related to the space pirates maybe trying to recreate a better version of Metroid Prime, and I think that might be the final boss to this game, possibly. Okay, and the final clip to look at is my favorite clip, and it's this one where we see Samus in this gigantic planetary foliage-filled area. And this, to me, is the scene very similar to, like, Link running up across Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. This is what's meant to show you the true scale of the game. Because, again, the gameplay section, that 60 seconds of her in that space planetary battle, that is very confined and claustrophobic and action-filled, and it's very brief. It's not showing us a lot. It's not giving us a sense of scale. I think they were very smart to include this section as a tease to say, here is the scale of the planet. Again, are we going to be on one planet or multiple planets? We don't know. But we're looking at a planet, and we're seeing the sense of scale we're going to get to traverse. This, to me, I love this, you guys, because my favorite area in all of Metroid, is the Talon 4 overworld, and I don't think we're on Talon 4. It would be cool if we were. But I don't think this is Talon 4, but it looks like Talon 4, right? Or it looks a little bit like the Temple Grounds from Metroid Prime 2. And so here we're seeing this is the scale of the game. Look at this huge area of this planet you can go and traverse. Who knows what we're going to find in this huge area, you guys? Look at how beautiful it is. Look at how epic and vast it is. And I really want to point this out. I spoke about this briefly. I immediately keyed into this when I was watching it in my reaction. This scene, you know, you see 2025, but behind it is this huge, like, it basically looks like just a giant tree. It's probably a giant tree. And again, I don't think this is necessarily the temple grounds from Metroid Prime 2 on Planet Aether, but what it does do is it looks to me like when you first come across the temple grounds, you come across the Sky Temple and the elevators to the Sky Temple, and it's this huge branching vines and trees that just lead up way up into the sky into another area you can access. And that's where you talk to, is it Lumos? I'll have to double check his name. But it's the first time you meet one of the Luminoth in Metroid Prime 2. And this just looks very similar to that. I feel like they're trying to evoke that essence. I think you can probably access that big tree and go up into the top of that big tree, very similar to what you can do in Metroid Prime 2. Now, maybe they blow our minds, shock the hell out of us, and what if this is Aether, and what if this is just how they're rendering the temple grounds and the Sky Temple, just with modern technology in this new Metroid Prime 4 engine? I would love it if that's the case, and we're basically revisiting places we've revisited before. I'd love to go back to Talon 4. I'd love to go back to Planet Aether, and maybe that's what this is. But I don't think that's what this is. I do think they, however, purposefully designed it to be reminiscent of the Temple Grounds and the Sky Temple from Metroid Prime 2. I noticed it immediately, and I wanted to show you the comparison and share it with you guys today in this video to see if you see a lot of what I'm also seeing. So, it's been a day, and if you can't tell, I've been chomping at the bit to talk about this stuff. I just, I'm cramming so much into this video. It's a very long video, but there's a lot to talk about, because Prime 4 is real, the footage is real, the game is real, the gameplay is real. To talk about the practical stuff, we have a year. It's 2025. It's next year. They didn't give us a date like I did theorize the day before the Direct. I was like, I think we might be days away from seeing Metroid Prime 4, and we're probably going to get a date. I did say there's a chance it ends in 2025, fades into frame, and that is what happened. So that part of my guess was correct. But I was also still more banking on getting an official release date, and we didn't get a release date. It's not coming out this year. It's coming out next year. So is it a Switch-only game? We know it's coming to Switch, but is it going to come to Switch too? I think so. I think this is going to be cross-gen. And so, or it's going to be backwards compatible, and the Switch 2 will hopefully upgrade the visuals even more than the beautiful graphics we already have. So we don't know those things. It remains to be seen. But 2025 release, to me, brings next generation into the conversation. Confirmed. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. It's not confirming a next generation version of Metroid Prime 4. But what it does is it confirms that we can comfortably talk about next gen being an option on the table. Does that make sense? That's a really silly way to phrase it, but I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. So 2025 lets us know that. It also makes me wonder, I don't want to be a negative Nancy because I feel pretty confident that they're going to stick to 2025. But in reality, having gone back and watched this so many times now, and doing it again with you guys today in this video, when you really compartmentalize everything shown in this trailer, it really isn't a lot. It is a tease. Now, it's gameplay, so we're seeing the game in action. We know it's far enough along that Nintendo felt comfortable showing it to us. But they only showed us a couple of sections of that gameplay battle. We didn't see a whole lot. We just saw Sylux, and then we saw the planet at the very end when Samus is walking into that big open area. That's all they showed us. Now, I am okay with it. I am more than satisfied. Look, I'm making a freaking 30-minute video talking about it. I am satisfied, and I am patient, especially now that we've seen the game. But, what if this has the chance of jumping around? Is this going to be ready in 2025? Is there the slightest, bittiest possibility of them pulling a Zelda, like I talked about in my video, and they do shift the date around? Will this slip to 2026? Maybe? But I don't think so. So I don't want to go any further down that rabbit hole other than to have just said it out loud here in this video. Because I think they're more just being careful with how they're rolling out information. Hopefully it means that they just want to save the bigger reveals, the longer gameplay sections, showing us more locations and planets, showing us more gameplay advancements, different beams she might use for her arm cannon and visors. Maybe they're saving the real gameplay blowout for after they show us the Switch 2, confirm this is coming to that console, and then showing us more and doubling down on 2025. I want to think that the briefness of this teaser is more so that they can wait to show us information after Switch 2 is revealed than confirming that the game still has a long ways to go and that the release date is going to slip to 2026. I'm just thinking out loud, but that's kind of what I feel. And so I think that's it for now. I have a ton of other ideas rolling through my head, And there's even other stuff from the Nintendo Direct I want to talk about. Actually, that's not true. There's only one other thing I want to talk about, which is that Zelda game, which I'm actually extremely excited for. That was a huge reveal. But in talking about Metroid Prime 4, plenty of other conversations I have planned around this game. I have a lot of other thoughts, and I'll find out more and more as I continue to reanalyze this footage, just like you guys. But like I said, it's been 24 hours. I've had time to think on it, review it, now discuss it. My voice is getting tired. This video is very long. But I just feel so strange, but in a good way. You know, like I was saying at the beginning here, to wrap this up, we've seen it. I mean, it's not carried my channel, but this has been a huge part of why I've been doing YouTube. I started in 2013, but then 2017 rolls along, and here's Metroid Prime 4, and I was like, oh my god, I get to cover a new Metroid game. And I have been covering it for 7 years, but I've been covering it through the guise of mystery. And doing, having podcast conversations with other fellow YouTuber friends of mine who are huge Metroid fans, and we're all invested in this game. And there's going to be a lot of that coming, so keep an eye out, by the way. We've got some things planned already in that respect. But it was just, what can I guess and theorize about? How can I keep my own hype going for 7 years? And now it's like, I don't know, there's a quality inside of me, and this is not bad, and I'm not trying to be melodramatic or corny here, so forgive me, but there's a quality inside me as somebody who puts myself on YouTube to talk about this stuff that now feels like I've crossed a threshold, man. And also just as a fan, because more important than running a YouTube channel, even though this has been a part of my life for 10 years, running a YouTube channel and talking about Metroid to YouTube, it's also just me as a fan. I'm a Metroid fan way before I'm a YouTuber. I do this for fun and to entertain you guys, but I just care about Metroid. I care about Metroid more than I care about doing YouTube, you guys. I'm going to be honest, and I always have. And so now I have something so much more tangible to hold on to, and thank God for Metroid Dread, because what a time in my fandom that was as well. Boy, Metroid Dread was something special. You can even make a case for it being more special than Prime 4 to the Metroid fandom. But this is my thing in a way, because Metroid Prime has been my favorite game of all time for 20 years, since it came out in 2002. And now we have something to look at and say, look, this is Metroid Prime 4. This is the game. This is Samus. This is what they're showing us. It's called Beyond. I didn't even talk about the title Beyond. Okay, that's going to have to be another video. Because Beyond, what is that even going to mean? I have all sorts of thoughts about Beyond. The logo looking like a black hole like everyone talks about. It also looks like something else to me that I'll get into in a different video. So it's an exciting time, you guys. I just feel like, finally, that's just how I feel. So I'm going to end this for now. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. If you've been along this 7-year journey with me, from the reveal of the game to the delay in 2019 when I was sat on my desk in my old house to now when we finally seen Metroid Prime 4 and we have a title. If you've been following along, man, we've made it. Together, we've made it. Metroid fans, together, strong. Right? That's us, man. We're freaking here. And we have a year to go. If they stick to the date, next year, we're all going to play Metroid Prime 4. But make no mistake, I'm going to be here between now and then to make some more videos and talk about and theorize and cover this game now that we've got some stuff to look at. So, okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for tuning in, guys. What a time to be a Metroid fan. And I will be seeing you soon on another Metroid video.